Labor Express, the last WLUW broadcast. On April 26, 2015, Jerry Mead-Lucero, host of Labor Express, prepares for the last broadcast on WLUW-FM. Chicago's Loyola University, which owns the station, had suddenly decided to end community-oriented talk shows. Waiting outside the studio before his show begins, Jerry talks about the situation.
But it seems like the Dean of Communications here and the university wants to turn this into a fully music-oriented, student-run station. Now, we certainly don't oppose student involvement. That's something that we really support at the station, and Labor Express has had student interns in the past. We've been wanting to have more and haven't gotten that support from the management here, unfortunately. We'd love to see that, but the reality is that a station with just student DJs and nothing else is really not a quality station. Students really benefit from actually working with, alongside people that have real experience at this. And the community hosts really provide a backbone, because the students are transient, honestly, right? They come in for a semester, then they're gone, or they're coming for a couple of years, then they're gone. The person whose job it was to make the announcement about the cut of the community programs, the program manager here, which is a student, the only student involved in the decision, the others were the dean and the station manager, who are not students. The only student involved in this decision, after telling the community programs that they were being cut, announced several days later that, oh, I'm graduating in May, so I'm going to be gone.
Wayne Heimbach, founding host of Labor Express back in the 90s, has been invited by Jerry to be the special guest for this last show. Jerry and Wayne into the studio as Logic Consortium is just ending. Jacob Briskman, its host, was also told that his talk show was getting canceled.
Hey Jacob, how's it going, man?
Hey, go get him, Jerry.
Okay, congratulations on your last show. It sounded really good.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, take care, man.
Call me if you want to meet up or something.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. I'll keep you informed what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. You're listening to Labor Express Radio, Chicago's only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, news for people by working people. I'm your host, Jerry Mead-Lucero, and this is the Sunday, April 26th, 2015 edition of Labor Express. Well, we might as well say it right off the bat. This could very well be the final episode of Labor Express Radio on WLUW. I apologize to those listeners hearing this for the first time, but it is new news to us here at Labor Express as well. WLUW management a week ago informed us that Labor Express Radio, along with most of the other non-music community programs, would be removed from the broadcast schedule as of May 1st. Ironically, May Day, a little irony there. On today's program, we'll be discussing those turn of events and what it means for Labor Express and for labor's access to the airwaves in Chicago. We'll have a very special guest in studio to discuss that topic and the 20-plus year history of this program. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. I won't tell people what the special guest is. You'll just have to wait for that. So the reason I'm rebroadcasting part of last week's program is I'm rebroadcasting the stuff with my students because I wanted them to listen in tonight. The adjunct professors at Loyola were broadcasting that piece, which is new, because we hope the adjuncts would listen in tonight. I need to. Well, I want to talk to you about that. That's okay. I want to talk about that. But let me get ready to go on here. Wednesday, April 15th, the Fight for 15 held an International Day of Action with low-wage workers striking and rallying in more than 200 cities across the U.S. and around the world. There were large actions in Chicago, New York, Boston, L.A., San Francisco, and in cities as far away as Athens, Greece, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Hong Kong, China. Organizers called it the largest mass mobilization of low-wage workers yet. What's for sure is that tens of thousands of workers participated, including several thousand here in Chicago. And an interesting development in the movement, fast food workers and workers in retail were joined by strikers from other industries where wages are also far too low. Here in Chicago, 50 Brinks security and armored car employees decided to walk off the job, citing Brinks' recent reduction in contributions to workers' 401ks and the shorting of workers' overtime pay. In addition, adjunct faculty from several Chicago area universities, including here in at Loyola, joined the strikers. Many adjuncts have tried to piece together a living from multiple part-time appointments, and some make so little that they qualify for food stamps. SEIU, which has been the primary source of support and funding for the Fight for 15, has started organizing adjunct professors and is demanding adjuncts be paid $15,000 per course, as well as offered more full-time position. You're listening to Labor Express, news for working people, by working people, and we're talking about the April 15th Fight for 15 rally that took place at UIC and then the march through downtown. As expected, traditional unions were there in large numbers to support the Fight for 15, especially SEIU, which has been one of the main sources of funding and support for Fight for 15. I spoke with Joe Eisenbaker, who's the executive board member of SEIU Local 73 and is a chief steward over at the UIC campus. Joe pointed out the connection between the Fight for 15 and recent struggles for racial justice, like the Black Lives Matter movement. He also pointed out that the UIC administration were doing their best to shut down the rally that day.
Support for the Black Lives Matter movement and the struggle to.
So it looks like we'll be right at 8:30 when we get on. They'll be out doing. I'm going to do a music break in between us going on, which I won't even play the whole song. I'll just play a little bit of it just to get us ready to go, and then boom.
We'll bring the mic down then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I want to just point out that UIC's administration shut off the sound for our demonstration as well, which was really dirty.
Yeah, I noticed they were keeping people out of the building, so they weren't like use the restrooms or anything like that. So they're really trying to shut this down. It seems.
Yeah, it's really dirty. I think, you know, they can talk all they want about wanting to have better relations with the community. It doesn't mean much.
Well, thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it.
As always, Jerry, good to see you, man.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio, Chicago's only English language labor news and current affairs radio program. And as mentioned earlier in the program, the Fight for 15 is now expanded beyond fast food and retail workers and taken on a whole new meaning, quite literally, for another group of surprisingly low-paid workers. I'm talking about adjunct professors at universities across the city and nation. On April 15th, while workers and students were rallying at the UIC campus, the Fight for 15K, or Faculty Forward, was organizing, which is an organizing project of SEIU and an outgrowth of the Fight for 15 movement, was rallying at Loyola's Lakeshore campus. The adjuncts, mostly part-time workers, many who work for abysmally low wages and no benefits, are demanding a minimum of $15,000 per course plus benefits and a union. In the following segment, you will hear from some of those who participated in the Faculty Forward action at Loyola. The first voice you will hear is that of Loyola adjunct professor Matthew Hoffman.
Today, Loyola is hosting the Faculty Forward event for all of Chicago.
We're going to take a very brief music break here, and then we're going to have a special guest on. Actually, before I do that, though, I do want to thank Larry Duncan, Steve Dahlber, and the rest of the crew at Larrabee TV for making that audio available. And I want to bring in our special guest that I've been talking about all night, but not naming until now. Wayne Heimbach is here with us, and Wayne was the originator of Labor Express Radio. He is the daddy of Labor Express Radio here. So let's start off our conversation. Wayne, can you talk a little bit about when you got Labor Express started here on WLUW? That's like over 21 years ago, right? I think it was
20. I stopped counting quite a few years ago. I worked with Labor Beat for a while, and we started back in 1985, 86 with our first show on cable. And in the early 90s, some of us got a little bit interested in radio. So we went and we worked with a group called, or we formed a group called Real World Radio. And you couldn't be on unless you could say that, Real World Radio. But we did that for about a year or so. Then Loyola came to us. They said that Loyola is interested in developing a better relationship with the community. And one of the most important parts of this community, Chicago's community, is the labor movement. And could you, being Labor Beat, come up with something that would fill some time on the station to be able to help out with that? And we said, yes, thank you very much. We thought that we would be able to do that. So what we did, we started slowly. We tried to figure out what we were trying to do. We're trying to get a reputation in the labor movement as well. We wanted people to be able to talk about their issues, rank and file, people who are leading the unions. We wanted to have people have a sense that this is a real community and they had a voice. We had people who worked on the ambulances, the paramedics, organizing a union. They talked, and we heard later that ambulances were sitting all over Chicago, listening to the program when it came on. At that time, it came on Mondays. They would listen to it. We had another guy with SEIU, Local 1, who was on strike with one of the large buildings up around the campus of Loyola on the north side. And he taped his interview, the one I did with him, and he played it in his car, volume all the way up while they were striking.
Wow.
And it was important for them to be able to say, this is our voice, this is our movement, these are our lives that we're talking about. And their friends could be able to relate to that as well. So from the very beginning, that's what we tried to do. We hoped that it made an impression on Chicago, that the labor movement isn't what you read about necessarily in the Tribune or the Sun-Times, but it's people you work with, people who are losing their jobs through privatization, people who, well, like now with the Fight for 15, people who aren't making enough money day by day to be able to do something about that. So we wanted to bring in those people to talk about their issues.
Labor Express isn't the only show being canceled here on WLUW. Most of the talk community programs are being canceled. A lot of the music ones are surviving, but a lot of the talk community programs are being canceled in this purge that's going on right now. And when we talk about the history of Labor Express, it's the history of WLUW as well, right? Because that time when you guys launched this program 21 years ago, it was part of a whole attempt to turn, as you said, Loyola came to you. They were trying to turn the station into a station that really benefited the community, that really engaged with the community. And so it's that history that you're talking about as well.
We have a real treasure here in our community of people talking about these issues as working people, not just Labor Express. Most of these shows, many of them had to do with working people and what that meant. And this is so important for our community to be able to express itself. These are really difficult times. And when you start to shut down the voice of people, I mean, that has all kinds of implications. I don't know where that's going to go.
I do want to point out something too. You talked about the fact that so much more is online now, and some of the response, or even WLUW's management's response to cutting us, was to say things like, well, you can always podcast your program, which certainly, but I want to say we will, Labor Express Radio will continue a presence on the web, no doubt, no matter what. We are actually already looking at other homes over terrestrial radio, though, and the reason I think that it's still important to maintain that is because one of the things I always felt strongly about being here on WLUW and being over the air is when you're doing a podcast, when you're online, it's so easy to fall into preaching to the choir, right? Talking to the same people that you always hear from you. But when you're on the air, you always have that chance of reaching that person that wouldn't have heard from you otherwise, from other situation, right? And that's what excites me about that. I had so much more to say, particularly as a Loyola alum. I wanted to say how much this hurts me. I've heard from my students. I'm a teacher, and I've heard so much that people feel like Loyola doesn't reach out to the inner city community, the communities of color, and working class communities, and I kind of feel that this is a symbol of that as well. I want to talk about that, but we're out of time, unfortunately. So signing off for the last time here on WLUW, but we will be back. Definitely keep checking our Facebook page for updates about what's going on. Tune in what am I saying? I'm about to read the line that will never be said again. You cannot probably tune in again next week at 8 p.m. for another edition of Labor Express, but keep going to our Facebook page, facebook.laborexpress.org, to find out our future. We are definitely not disappearing. I promise you that. We're not going quietly into the night. So thank you all for listening, and for the last time, here is Worker Song by the Dropkick Murphys.
Chuck Wren, host of Everything Offbeat, invites Jerry to chat on the air for a moment before he begins his music show.
It is very good to hear that the recent, media support for this program has brought the attention of a few other outlets out there. Yes. So after your short cleansing sabbatical, we'll hear you on some other part of the left end of the dial, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Trey.
All right. Good luck with everything, and now begins an hour of ska music and everything offbeat.
And so that's how it ended. But, like Jerry said, the show will return to the web and Chicago's airwaves. Watch for updates at facebook.laborexpress.org.